Okay, so welcome to my ETalk, the topic of which is Bristol Bay, Alaska, specifically what's been happening there and the connection with the indigenous inhabitants of the region. So this is a current events ETalk, which I wanted to do because, I wanted to target something, especially something to do with native peoples that might fly under your radar, but that I think is incredibly important. And hopefully you will too by the end of this. So yeah, and I'll cite everything I used. I used actually some tribal sources who are, like Save Bristol Bay. I used the EPA as source, used some major news organizations. And as far as personal connection, there's not really one. It's just, I've spent some time with family fishing up in Alaska, and I have a lot of respect for this region, and most especially the people of it. Okay, so you may have heard of Bristol Bay for one of two reasons. The first is that it has two national parks, Katmai and Lake Clark, and the second is that it's popularly known as America's Fish Basket because it has the largest salmon run anywhere in the world. What you might not know is that it's home to not one but three different native groups, which would be the Aleut, the Yupik Eskimo, and the Athabascan, in addition to a collection of smaller tribes. So, for many thousands of years, the native peoples of this area have lived off of the land and the sea, um, with salmon playing a huge part in that, being up to 46% of a subsistence diet for many families, and also being a huge economic driver with tourism and commercial fishing being some of the largest, if not the largest, industries in the area. In other words, the health of the environment in this region, specifically the health of its waterways, is directly linked to the health and prosperity of the native peoples who live in it. Of course, the issue is that Bristol Bay has natural resources to offer other than fish, and that's where the problems emerge. There are at least 11 billion tons of copper and gold ores under Bristol Bay, and for years, a Canadian company named Northern Dynasty Minerals has wanted to build the largest open pit mine in North America to actually get at that material. Now, the concerns of the native people began with Northern Dynasty due to the fact that A, they've never actually built a mine before, and B, they're working with the contractors responsible for the notorious Mount Poly mine disaster. On top of this, according to many environmental scientists, including the ones at the EPA, there would be a significant environmental risk in the construction of this mine, the so-called pebble mine, not limited to the fact that Northern Dynasty's proposal includes the construction of a deep water port, somewhere around at least 150 miles of road, um, the probable destruction of 200 miles worth of streams, and the production of at least 10 billion tons of waste materials. To put in context what it looks like when that all goes wrong, especially in a seismically active region like south central Alaska, here's a photo of the previously mentioned Mount Poly mine disaster. Under the current administration, Northern Dynasty's plans were actually greenlighted, with the Army Corps of Engineers okaying a final environmental impact statement and essentially giving the go-ahead to Pebble Mine. The EIS was actually revoked recently, but make no mistake, the Pebble Mine proposal and Northern Dynasty are still very much alive. Now, the concern for groups like the Bristol Bay Native Corporation is that Bristol Bay is going to suffer the same fate as places like Bears Ears National Monument and the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, both of it which were important indigenous lands which have since been partially or near wholly co-opted by private interests under this administration. I can't offer a solution other than the one already put forward by the indigenous peoples of this area, which is that the American public has to speak out, and they have to speak out louder than the money. Um, it's worked once. The final EIS, as I said, environmental impact statement, was actually revoked, preventing Pebble Mine from moving forward, but it's still very much alive. And if we want to save these lands, not just for the native peoples of today, but for those who will come after them and their descendants, then that's the only option. So thank you very much for listening, and please give my citations a look.